This is the story of a boy named Rudd, who really dislikes his older brother. Rudd always has to chase after him, and just when he thinks he's caught up, his big brother goes even further ahead. Rudd despises the half-hearted consideration his brother gives him just because they're related by blood. That's what he thought back then, but he realizes he was wrong when his brother dies because of him. Rudd regrets hating his only family. He looked up to his brother and wanted to stand beside him as equals, but his brother died while protecting him. His brother keeps moving forward, leaving Rudd behind. In the end, only Rudd survives. Afterward, Rudd hides beneath a tree, but the dragons, drawn by the scent of blood, fly overhead. He's lost one arm and a leg, so he can't run. He thinks he'll take a few of those dragons down with him to the other world. Suddenly a bright light flashes, and the Dragon King appears before him. Judging by his aura and scent, he's definitely the king of the dragon race. However, Rudd can't sense any power from this person. It's like looking at a mirage, a vague presence. After a while, the Dragon King asks Rudd if he's the only one left. Rudd's instincts scream that this man is more dangerous than the 7 horrible Dragon Kings. He must kill him. Rudd has one chance to close the distance and attack with all he has. He steps forward and strikes with his sword, cutting the Dragon King's head in two, just as his vision is blocked by a white flash of light. Then, he finds himself at the Academy's ceremony day, thinking he's gone back in time. The story starts on the Dragon Annihilation Academy's introduction day. The student president tells the first-year students that they are dragon slayers, meant to kill dragons and protect innocent lives. It doesn't matter if it's duty or entertainment. Suddenly another flash of light, and Rudd opens his eyes to the entrance ceremony day once more. He remembers a battle with dragons on Earth where everyone died. Rudd had killed many dragons himself, but there's no magic spell for time travel. At first he doesn't understand what's happening, but he realizes he can use this time as an opportunity. This time he'll kill all the dragons. He is walking on the stairs, talking to himself, when a girl calls him from behind. She asks if he is sick. He remembers her from the ceremony and calls her by her name, Henith Harpula. But she's surprised and asks how he knows her name. Rudd quickly makes an excuse, saying she's a top entrant, so he knows her. She's been wondering about his odd behaviour, talking to himself and cursing, so she asks if he has a mental illness or something. Rudd smiles at her comment, thinking she's as rude as always. But Henith doesn't like his smile and calls him a pervert who enjoys being cursed at. Just then, they hear an announcement that the entrance ceremony is about to begin. Rudd reflects on how everything started after the last ceremony. Henith asks for his name, and he tells her he's Rudd Donatos from a place called Disole on the outskirts of the country. She offers to teach him about the people on the second floor, who are all guild leaders of famous guilds. They're looking for promising talents to keep an eye on. Rudd thinks he knows them well, and speculates on their future achievements, and how they will eventually meet their demise. Henith mentions that she'll be eligible to apply for a guild once she reaches the 3rd year. It's already been decided for her because the Midsummer Flames Guild leader, Liana, is her role model. The White Flames Empress, Leona Chernica, is a top-ranking fire magician who uses pure white flames. Rudd recalls that he too perished at the hands of the Dragon King, and that Henith eventually became the next Midsummer Flames Guild leader. But she also sacrificed her life seeking revenge for her seniors. Before we continue, take a moment to answer the question of the day. What's the worst manhwa you've read? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out. Now back to the recap. Suddenly there's an announcement for Henith to step forward to read her elf. Rudd realizes that the situation is unfolding just as he remembered it. He knows that after this, his brother will come, the Aritum Student Council President, Aesir Donatos, the unparalleled genius and indomitable warrior. He's Rudd's one and only family. However, Rudd is shocked to see another student stepping forward as the student body president, Jeremy Duville. This shocks him because he remembers his brother being the president, and Jeremy was his closest friend. He rushes over to Jeremy, filled with curiosity, and asks him what he's doing there and where Aesir is. But his surprise grows when Jeremy says he's never heard of someone named Aesir Dinardos. A dark thought crosses Rudd's mind. Maybe Aesir doesn't exist in this world. The entrance ceremony wraps up, and the newcomers are told to head to their assigned classrooms. As Rudd walks, he can't shake the worry about his brother. He thinks about all the possibilities. What if Aesir changed his mind and didn't come here? Or worse, what if he's stuck somewhere for a mysterious reason? Suddenly Henith comes up to him, noticing he's deep in thought. She asks what's bothering him, and he mentions that he's searching for someone. She suggests he contact the Information Guild or go to the library to get a list of students. Rudd thinks it's a great idea and heads towards the library with Henith following him. She's amazed by the library's beauty, something she's always wanted to see. For Rudd, it's his first time here, and he starts looking for the record book. Henneth's eyes light up when she sees a vast collection of books that match her tastes, the kind you can't buy with money. Meanwhile, Rudd checks all the student records but can't find anyone named Aesir Dinardos. Now he understands that if Aesir isn't in this world, it's because of the Dragon King Void, Dragon Sartnin. The Dragon King controls dimensions and voids and disappeared with Aesir's body during the last subjugation before his regression. This suggests Aesir might still be alive in another dimension. Suddenly, he hears Henneth arguing with the librarian about borrowing 17 books. The librarian insists they can only borrow 3 at a time and tells them to head to their classroom for a lecture. Rudd leaves Henneth and rushes to class. When he arrives, someone asks if he found the person he was looking for, but Rudd sadly replies that the name wasn't on the list. Then, Daniel Gold, the instructor responsible for teaching basic combat this year, enters the classroom. He encourages the students, saying that with hard work and a bit of talent, they can achieve remarkable things. Rudd wonders what Mr. Gold means by a bit of talent. He remembers how desperate and ashamed he felt to gain that tiny bit of talent. Daniel believes that his brief introduction is sufficient for their 4-tier stay at the academy. He urges them to give their best effort and avoid any regrets. The Dragon Slayer, as its name suggests, is the one who defeats dragons. In every battle, stamina is crucial. There are free training areas nearby where they can build up their stamina. Rudd heads to the training room he used to frequent as a child. He wants to test if he still possesses the same stamina. After some training, exhaustion sets in, and he starts to doubt his abilities. But he's just 17 years old, so he shouldn't be too hard on himself. Combat classes start tomorrow, and he has only 1 week before the sparring class. To avoid repeating his past mistakes, he must do better this time. Suddenly he spots a familiar figure, another ally from his past life, Balak Steros. Balak is a physical combatant who will later earn the title of Fist King. They didn't meet in his previous life, as Rudd usually went to a different training room. This time, difference might explain the meeting. Initially, Rudd considers ignoring him, as there seems to be no need for interaction. However, Balak's persistent stares irritate him, and he finally asks if Balak wants to pick a fight. Balak explains that he's just admiring Rudd's perfect postures, and that no one in his family, not even his father, showed him such flawless movements. They introduce themselves, and Balak offers to treat Rudd as his workout mentor. Rudd declines, saying he can't teach him. The next day, Daniel takes all the students to a training ground and asks them to choose a weapon of their choice. Henneth, who aims to become a wizard, wonders if she should pick a weapon. Daniel responds that real battles can happen unexpectedly, so it's important for her to learn how to protect herself, even as a wizard. Rudd suggests that she should choose a short dagger to control the blade's attack radius with her mana. It's small and easy to carry. In the past, Henneth was pretty good with daggers, using them to save up mana, or in sudden close combat situations. Rudd takes out his sword and swings it in the air. Daniel watches him from behind, surprised by his skill. It's not what you'd expect from an ordinary student. Rudd approaches Daniel and asks if he can use multiple weapons. Daniel explains that it's usually better to focus on one weapon, but if he's interested in different ones, he can have them. Rudd decides to go for a sword, a spear, and a big sword, declaring that he'll use them all. Daniel is impressed and curious about Rudd's background. Rudd reveals that he used to work as a mercenary to survive and tragically lost his family to a dragon. Suddenly, a commotion erupts nearby. Balak is in a heated fight with another student over a weapon. He's so skilled in physical combat that he doesn't need a weapon, and he proudly declares that the Stereo's family fighters don't use them. The other students watch in silence. Balak notices Rudd and rushes over, ignoring Henneth's questions about their relationship. Daniel intervenes, telling Balak he can't go to his friend when the professor is talking to him. Balak insists they aren't friends but have a deeper master-student connection. Rudd steps in, asserting that they are friends, but Daniel tries to persuade Balak to choose a weapon since they're in the middle of training. Rudd thinks they'll just let Balak be, as it happened in his past life. However, he's shocked when Daniel threatens that Balak might have to repeat the year, suggesting that the past has changed. Rudd realizes that his involvement might be causing this change, and worries that if Balak fails here, it could complicate things for the force that will face the future Dragon King. Balak offers to accept failure humbly, but Daniel tells him to be quiet, and asks the professor if he can make an exception. The professor refuses, saying it wouldn't be fair to others. Desperate to help Balak, Rudd suggests a pair of gauntlets as a weapon that might suit him. Balak initially refuses, emphasizing that warriors from the Steros family don't use weapons. However, Rudd insists, asking Balak to accept it as a gift from a friend. He agrees immediately, in the name of a friend, and Daniel says they'll call it a uniquely designed gauntlet. It's said that the first week in an air academy is the time for new students to adjust, but it's also when professors learn the students' abilities and scout them. Rudd has done enough to catch their attention and earn a recommendation, so he wants to spend the rest of this time preparing himself for the sparring class, but he wonders why they're both naturally grouping themselves with him. Meanwhile, some students appear in front of them and call their attention. Henneth gets angry and asks them to move out of the way, while the boy exclaims he doesn't have anything against her and also enjoyed her speech earlier. She starts shouting at them, but Rudd asks her to move aside and asks them what they want. The boy says he has a problem with them because they create scenes in the class to get attention. They all make fun of and laugh at them, saying how they got admitted to the academy. Rudd remembers he had beaten them all in his previous life because he was short-temper Rudd, but this time he will act maturely and not get freaked out. He exclaims that they are enough to fight them with one weapon, even if they use 500. The boy becomes furious about this and tries to punch Rudd, but he easily dodges him. The boy can't balance himself, falls on the ground and tries to take out his sword. Henneth shouts at him and says that using weapons outside of sparring is prohibited, but he doesn't listen to her. He tries to attack Rudd with his sword while he thinks he can test this body and the move he learned from Balak in his previous life. He uses the skill of Stero's style, bare-handed parrying, dodges him with his bare hand, and punches him back. The boy badly falls on the ground, and Rudd asks him to consider it a lesson for the next time. Balak is shocked to see his technique because it belonged to his family. Meanwhile, a professor appears there and asks about what is happening. One of Wilhelm's friends claims that Rudd hit him first, but Henneth and Balak defend him, saying that he attacked him first and just responded to his attack. The instructor is surprised at how he was able to disarm him bare-handed, because a first-year student can't do this without injuries. She asks Wilhelm's friends to take him to the clinic and calls Rudd to come to his office after classes when all of them leave. Henneth is curious, so he asks Balak how he managed to use this technique without any weapons. Balak reveals that the adults in his family can do it, but he can't yet. Henneth wonders if Balak might be his lost brother, but Rudd knows the truth. He can't tell them that he learned this in his previous life, so he brags that he's just a natural genius. Henneth, however, senses that Balak is hiding something and presses him to spill the beans, but Balak insists that they shouldn't dig into each other's secrets. After class, he heads to the instructor's office and apologizes for causing a scene. He tells her that Wilhelm insulted his friends and he didn't realize it, which led to the fight. The instructor is touched by his words and sees him as a good guy who stands up for his friends. She lets him off the hook with a smile and promises to handle Wilhelm during training. Meanwhile, Daniel enters her office because today's meeting for the freshman class teachers is in her office. He teases her for being stubborn and not coming to the meeting place. Shortly after, Class D's homeroom teacher, Arthur Winston, and Class C's homeroom teacher, Damien Grace, join the meeting. Daniel notes that this year's new students are more advanced than last year's, and he expects a high graduation rate. Arthur asks if there are any students they should keep an eye on, and Damien replies that they are all quite exceptional. Claire chimes in, mentioning the idiot in Class B, Wilhelm, whose written exam was awful, but his practical skills were outstanding. She adds that Wilhelm comes from the famous unarmed muscle enthusiast Stero's family, and Daniel seems intrigued. Daniel reveals that there are two standout prospects in his class, Harpolia's second daughter, Henneth, and a student named Rudd Donatos. They are all surprised when they see Rod's profile, showing he barely passed both the written and practical exams, lost his family, and worked as a mercenary. However, Daniel insists that Rudd is the strongest among the first years. Claire also praises Rudd, the one who subdued Wilhelm without weapons. She believes she should be his teacher since she specializes in unarmed combat. However, Daniel thinks Rudd's true talent lies in weaponry, like the spear and the sword. The meeting continues as they discuss their students' potential and future prospects. They both start fighting each other, each wanting to keep Rudd as his student. Arthur interrupts them, saying this is not how a teacher should behave. He reminds them there's still a week until the sparring class, so they should calm down. He also points out that the student has the right to choose their professor. They are shocked when Claire tells them that Rudd belongs to Disol. 10 years ago, the village disappeared after the Thousand Form incident. It was a tragedy that destroyed half of the Caliban kingdom to the south. This event marked the beginning of their national decline, eventually vanishing from the maps. A few years later, a single dragon destroyed an entire country. Daniel reveals that his master was the one who killed 1,000 dragons. But they didn't know there was a survivor of the incident. They wonder if he has come to the academy to train for revenge on dragons. Meanwhile, Arthur reveals that there is another student in Class D, another genius with monstrous talent. Before we continue, let's take a moment to shout out Rafat5180 who commented, "If you could reincarnate, what would your profession be? Probably a monster disassembly," on our Isekai'd 101 times video. Thanks for commenting. 2 days later, during the combined physical training class, Rudd is exercising. He thinks there are 3 days left until the sparring lecture. Now, he's finally getting used to the breathing technique and postures he used in his past life to some extent. Henneth appears and shouts at them, surprised they can work out for 3 hours straight without resting. Balak suggests she should exercise with them, thinking all the women in this academy look like they've been starved for weeks. After some time, Henneth and Rudd go to a cafe to buy some drinks. There, he sees a girl named Leon. Rudd remembers her from his past life. She used to bully him, saying she considered him more vital than his brother, but that he was weaker than him. She is a swordsman with the talent of the Devil Sword Saint, a knight as strong as his brother and one of the strongest dragon slayers. Suddenly he remembers he hates her, so he yells at her and asks her to step aside, which makes her angry. She tries to attack him, but Rudd easily blocks her attack. She attempts to kick him again, but he once again blocks her attack. She thought he was just an idiot, but he dodged her attacks twice and asked her why she was trying to pick a fight with him. Rudd exclaims that she was the one who blocked their way first. He passes her, and Leon asks his name, saying she will surely remember him. She leaves them there, and Rudd thinks he almost broke his wrist when he tried to test her strength. She's got crazy physical power. Henneth takes him to the infirmary and wraps his wrist up. After a while, Claire rushes over and asks Rudd what happened. He says it was just an accident, but Henneth spills the beans. She says Rudd got beaten by a girl named Leonka. Rudd chimes in, saying it wasn't a beatdown, just a minor squabble. They're both surprised to hear about Leon, and Claire is dead set on giving her a lesson. But Daniel steps in and says no way. He warns Claire that if she can't control her temper, it'll cause trouble. Arthur, who's in charge of Class D, steps up and says he'll handle it smartly. Leon has taken on many students before, so they need to be careful. First, they think about complaining to Leon's guardian, the leader of the Dragon Annihilation troops. He asks Arthur to talk to her properly. 3 days later, all the students gather at the training ground for a combined sparring lecture. In this lecture, they'll each get a number and choose their opponent for a match. No one can pick the same opponent twice, so there will only be 2 matches for each student. All the professors watch from the second floor as the students compete. They start with Helion McDowell, who comes forward to choose his opponent. His opponent is Henneth. Rudd thinks she's just a wizard who's not great at magic, but she chooses a sword fight as her match. With pride, she hurls fireballs at her opponent, but they're not fast enough. Helion dodges with ease. He tries to close in before she can cast another spell, but Henneth speeds up and keeps him at bay. He struggles to dodge her attacks, and before he knows it, she's got her dagger at his neck. He admits his defeat, and Henneth is declared the winner. She's hoping for some appreciation from Miss Liana. Meanwhile, Rudd is thinking that her attacks were really impressive. He realizes it could have been dangerous if his opponent had noticed a little earlier. He thinks Henneth is always like that, with her fancy way of fighting and great battle sense. Her agility is top-notch, and her use of magic is just perfect. Instructor Arthur also gives Henneth some praise, saying it's pretty rare to see a wizard fighting like this. Claire steps in and announces the next student to come out and choose their opponent. This time, Wilhelm appears and calls Rudd to come forward. He promises not to repeat his past mistake. As they watch, they feel a bit embarrassed by Wilhelm's confidence and high spirit. Rudd, however, steps out and says he'll fulfill Wilhelm's wish. He defeats Wilhelm so severely that Wilhelm becomes unconscious, and some students have to take him to the infirmary. Rudd then exclaims that he wants to spar with another student. This time he chooses Balak Steros. Balak hesitates at first, saying that Steros fighters don't usually fight with their friends, but Rudd taunts him, calling him a coward. Rudd thinks Balak must have been really powerful in his past life, like the earth shaking with each step and mountains falling with every punch. Balak finally agrees to fight him, recalling a time in their past when Balak had to calm him down on someone else's request. But Balak used harsh words against his brother and threatened to kill him if he interfered in their matter. Now they're having a spar again, but this time Balak is determined not to repeat the past. He steps forward to attack Rudd, but Rudd doesn't just dodge his attack, he punches Balak's neck too. Balak is a bit frustrated because he's landed several hits on Rudd, but there are hardly any scratches. The Steros are a family of martial artists from the northern area, and each one of them is a muscle enthusiast. Their muscles, improved over generations, have fused with mana to create armor thicker and sturdier than iron. It can be said that Balak's body has become the strongest shield with bulging muscles. Regular attacks won't work on him. This time, Rudd takes out his sword to attack Balak. Balak can't dodge the attack and falls to the ground. The teachers are shocked by their fight, wondering if it's a battle between students. They didn't use any magic, but their abilities were as great as the current dragon slayers. Claire notices that Rudd didn't give his best in the battle, but he had perfect movements, postures, and accuracy. Daniel is a fan of the ideal swing Rudd showed at the end. He thinks Rudd's swordsmanship matches his master's Ain Bryce of the Heavenly Sword style. It doesn't make sense to Daniel because he's sure his master and Rudd have never been together. No matter how gifted someone might be, he believes no one could beat Rudd's extraordinary talent, not even Leon. Rudd isn't a genius, he's a monster, a child whose skills are already perfect even before he started learning. After the sparring lecture, they all head to the student cafeteria. Henneth isn't pleased about being there and suggests going outside to eat. But Balak says outside food lacks protein, and Rudd claims he's tired, so they can't go out. He questions Henneth's desire to spend money outdoors when they get good food for free. Then he remembers that she comes from a wealthy family, unlike him and Balak. Rudd is from a poor family. He had to risk his life to earn money. He gets upset when Henneth offers to buy him food from outside, as he doesn't want her kindness. Suddenly some students approach them. They're looking for Rudd. They turn out to be the guild masters from the Pursuer and Clouded Moon guilds. Roderick, the Pursuer guild master, introduces himself and praises Rudd's fighting style. Rudd also introduces himself but realizes he doesn't have any past connections with them. In his previous life, when he worked as a dragon slayer, they died in a battle against the 7 dragons. Roderick introduces him to Abel and mentions that Abel is a bit shy. Meanwhile, Henneth and Balak also stood up from their seats and introduced themselves. Henneth was curious about why they were in the students' cafeteria, and Roderick explained that they were alumni of the academy, so they often came there to eat. Henneth wondered if Miss Liana had also been there to eat, but Roderick sadly informed him that she had left as soon as the sparring lecture ended. Roderick then told Rudd that Abel had praised him a lot, saying he was the kind of person needed in his guild. Abel asked if Rudd knew him, and Rudd revealed that he was the 4th ranking dragon slayer on the individual list, and the guild master of the 2nd ranking guild, Clouded Moon. Abel explained that their 2nd rank was because they specialized in information, not because they were weaker than the top-ranked guild. He admired Rudd's confidence and offered him a spot in the Clouded Moon guild right after graduation. Rudd was taken aback by the offer and asked why Abel was going to such lengths. Abel replied that Rudd was a genius with great potential who needed a bigger stage to shine. He assured Rudd that Clouded Moon would provide the perfect platform for his talents. However, Rudd hesitated, stating that he hadn't chosen a guild yet. He believed the offer had potential, but he didn't want to be tied down to a guild where he couldn't do as he pleased. Rudd proposed a deal to Abel instead. He asked Abel to help him find his older brother, who had survived the disaster 10 years ago. Abel inquired about what he had to offer in return, and Rudd offered a good relationship. Abel considered the offer, thinking that having a strong bond with someone with a bright future wasn't a bad idea. He hoped their relationship would grow even stronger after they graduated. Henneth asked Rudd about the letter he had received from the teachers, but Rudd had momentarily forgotten due to the unexpected offer. The letter was about the assessment of the first sparring lecture. Rudd couldn't recall receiving positive reviews in his past life. He was about to open and check the letter, but Henneth assured him there was no need. She believed it would contain only good things that his family would be proud of. As Rudd pondered Henneth's unusual behavior, he wondered if something he had mentioned about his brother had bothered her. Then he remembered her elder sister, who was in a coma. Balak was curious about Rudd's brother, and asked him what kind of person his brother was. Rudd replied that his brother was incredibly kind, so kind that it made someone feel like an idiot. However, despite being an indomitable dragon slayer, his brother struggled because of his incompetent younger sibling. Rudd couldn't help but reminisce about his brother, describing him as immensely powerful, someone he couldn't even compare to. Balak tried to reassure Rudd and promised to help him find his brother. Just as they were talking, Henneth interrupted them, urging them to open the letters they had received. Henneth eagerly opened her letter, which informed her that she had great potential to become a formidable battle wizard. Balak, on the other hand, received a letter that seemed to inflate his ego. It praised his perfect body, outstanding strength, reflexes, and even his beautiful muscles. Balak couldn't resist bragging about his gorgeous muscles, claiming even the professors acknowledged them. Now it was Rudd's turn to open his letter, but Henneth offered to read it for him. To their shock, they noticed a sign on Rudd's letter that indicated the professors were calling him to choose them. After a while, Rudd entered the staff room where all the teachers eagerly awaited him. Arthur asked him to take a seat and wished him a comfortable stay in the academy, while Claire offered him coffee and snacks. Meanwhile, Daniel advised Rudd to wear a jacket because it was still chilly outside. Rudd asked if they had called him to choose his advisor. Arthas was excited and emphasized the importance of the sign left in the letter. After the sparing class, the first-year students were assigned to professors based on their traits. Sometimes a professor directly contacted a student, and these signs indicated just that. Claire emphasized that they prioritized the student's opinion and asked Rudd to choose one of them. Rudd acknowledged that they were all great teachers, but he had a special connection with Daniel, who had taught him the way of the sword in his past life. So he chose Daniel, expressing his desire to learn the course of the blade from him, which made Daniel very happy. However, Rudd had a condition. He asked Daniel to take him as his direct disciple. This revelation shocked everyone in the room. Daniel questioned Rudd, asking if he understood the significance of being a direct disciple. Rudd explained that there was no successor to carry forward the legacy of the sky-piercing technique, an ancient swordsmanship and mana-using technique designed to slay flying dragons. It had been taught to only one heir in each generation in his past life. Professor Daniel, a skilled swordsman, was the student of a legendary swordsman. His older brother was next in line to inherit the legacy. Daniel wondered how his brother knew the secret technique was empty. He thought his brother wanted him to be the heir, but hadn't expected him to bring it up first. He asked Rudd why he desired this power, and Rudd revealed that he wanted it because he was weak. Dragons had taken his friends and family, and he believed he could have saved them if he were stronger. He didn't want to witness his loved ones die in front of him anymore. Daniel thought about his own family and how dragons had taken his mother's life when he was young. He agreed to take Rudd as his direct disciple and proposed the idea of all the professors co-teaching and supervising him. Rudd was shocked by this offer. He recognized Rudd's talent and believed that teaching him just one sword technique would be a waste. If there was a way to unlock his potential, they had to try everything. Rudd questioned how he could learn from all the professors simultaneously, but Arthur thought it was a brilliant idea, as they needed a powerful dragon slayer. Rudd wondered if they were agreeing too quickly on something that might become a problem later. Arthur reassured him, saying it wouldn't be unfair to other students because they didn't possess Rudd's level of talent. Claire also expressed interest in Daniel's offer. Daniel made it clear that it was merely a proposition and that Rudd's decision would be respected. Daniel pondered the responsibility of filling the position of the next heir to the sky-piercing technique, while also accepting other professors as advisors. He worried about potentially taking away someone else's opportunity. After careful consideration, he agreed, believing they needed to secure everyone's future. To do that, he knew he had to push his limits and become stronger, no matter the cost. Later on, Claire approached Leon and revealed that self-control building lectures were starting with her. She instructed Leon to get into position and focus. If Leon zoned out, Claire would be ready to test her self-control. First, she punches her stomach, which really hurts, and as punishment she has to clean the academy because she got into trouble on the last day. She's sitting on the stairs crying when Rudd walks by. He's surprised to see her crying because he remembers how she used to be so cold and distant, like she wasn't even human. He wonders if this change in her is because of the Dragon Annihilation troop leader's death in his past life. Leon used to be just a regular kid before her adoptive mother, the troop leader, passed away. At that time, Rudd was still just a young boy, so their relationship wasn't great either. Now, he's the one who made her cry. He watches her from a distance for a while and then musters up the courage to ask why she's upset in the hallway. She starts yelling at him, blaming him for her hard time, but he offers her a tissue and apologizes for his rude behavior. She's surprised that he's apologizing and accepts it, warning him not to cause any more trouble. Rudd promises to avoid her as much as possible, thinking she'll become stronger on her own, just like she used to act alone in the past. She goes back to her room, feeling like she did something she's never done before, but that doesn't mean she wants to make friends. Rudd listens to her words but stops her and asks why she thinks he's following her. Rudd claims he's not following her but heading to class. Leon is also heading in that direction, which surprises Rudd. He wonders if they have the same professor, Daniel, who he's been waiting for. Rudd asks if both Leon and Rudd are in the same class, and Daniel replies that he nominated both of them. Rudd is shocked because Claire was Leon's academic advisor in his past life. Meanwhile, she approaches Rudd and asks if he has a problem with her. He tells her she should learn grappling techniques with Claire because he saw her sparring and she's already excellent at swordsmanship. He thinks grappling would help her bridge the gap in her skills. Daniel agrees with him, saying grappling techniques would complement her sword attacks. She has no idea that Rudd is watching her closely. She refuses, saying she's not the only smart one in the academy, and she knows what she needs to do. Rudd worries about how he'll train with her. He tries again to convince her to go to Professor Claire, but she gets angry and says she'll never go to that crazy professor who treats her students like dogs. Rudd thinks the future has changed again because in the past Leon's academic advisor was Claire and they had such a good relationship, but now they are like sworn enemies. It all starts with Daniel's plan, but the root cause of this plan is him. Daniel says that before starting the class he will give them a brief explanation. He states that the stages of swordsmanship are profound because it takes painstaking efforts that will break his bones. Both of them have already reached an excellent stage where they no longer need theories, but there are thousands of ways to use a completed movement, according to Daniel. The perfect training to pile up that experience is through self-control sparring lectures. They are shocked that he wants them to learn while receiving a beating. What will happen next? Find out next time by staying tuned for our future recaps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great recaps.
Last time, our main character started training with a new instructor alongside his beautiful rival Leon. After some time, the lecture ends, and they are both in miserable conditions. Still, Daniel seems happy and says that from now on, they will have group and individual lectures simultaneously, just like today, and he wishes them a good weekend. Rudd is dead tired and thinks he cannot defend himself. Leon says they should not be angry when they lose because they are weak. Besides, they need to learn precisely because they are weak. Also, he should know that Professor Daniel is an easygoing person. Rudd gets up and is about to go, but Leon stops him and says if he feels sorry for her, he should teach her the grappling techniques. Rudd refuses and asks her to go to the professors.
Could you please?
She requests him, saying she doesn't have enough time to learn swordsmanship, so it's more convenient if he teaches her. Besides, she is getting tired of getting beaten up by Professor Claire. Somehow he agrees to teach her and runs away while Leon asks him to keep his promise. He thinks the differences between this life and his past life keep throwing him off guard, so he can't turn down her request either. He decides to use this as an opportunity to repay the debt he owes her from his previous life. It's her fault for asking him to teach her the grappling techniques, so he will make her regret it. The Dragon Annihilation Academy, Eridom, is located in the capital of the Alea Empire in the continent's center. Therefore, the Imperial family tends to spare no effort to support it, and the Imperial Guild scouts most Eridom graduates. Most of the facilities in the academy are built in the latest style. Still, students often find their academic lives dull due to limited opportunities for travel. However, on weekends and holidays, they can explore the city. Henneth invites her friends to join her for an outing, but they both seem tired. Rudd expresses his desire to sleep all day, while Balak's arms need a break. Henneth promises to treat them to an expensive meal, and they reluctantly agree, seeing no way to escape her plan. After a day of dragging them around, Henneth takes them to a fancy restaurant where the servers warmly greet them. Rudd feels like he's never been to such a place, not even in his past life. Henneth mentions that they will all have the same meal with carbonated water. Balak, however, expresses his desire for more food, leaving Rudd shocked at the high prices on the menu. One course costs as much as a whole month's worth of food. Rudd urges Henneth to leave because the place is too expensive, but she insists they deserve it for helping her with her luggage. She encourages them to order whatever they like. Soon the food arrives, and Balak praises the incredible taste. He suggests ordering more, but Henneth hurls a knife in his direction and tells him to be quiet. Turning to Rudd, she asks if he likes the food. He thinks the taste is the same for all the dishes and considers her excessive kindness, especially since they were more like frenemies than friends in his past life. He prefers seeing her true self rather than this overly friendly version of her. Meanwhile, Balak once again attempts to give orders, but Henneth grabs her hand with frustration, urging her to stop. Rudd is grateful to Henneth for treating them to such a tasty meal. However, his discriminating attitude makes Balak feel downcast. It's almost 8 o'clock, and Rudd remembers that he promised Leon to teach her at this hour. Before we continue, take a moment to answer the question of the day. What is a good sword skill to have? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out. Now, back to the recap. On the other side of town, Leon is patiently waiting for Rudd. The clock shows it's already 5 minutes past 8, but there's no sign of him. Leon values Rudd as her first true friend, someone with whom she can have a genuine conversation. Unlike Leon, who seems to have many friends, Leon worries that her friend may have forgotten their promise. Finally, after a bit of waiting, Rudd enters the room, curious about why Leon arrived early. Leon explains that he's late because he should have been here 10 minutes earlier for their appointment. Rudd then asks if she's had anything to eat before coming here. Leon tells him that she had just shared a meal with some other kids in the capital. Their conversation shifts to grappling techniques, but Leon can't help but inquire about Rudd's friends. Rudd suggests they start with simple footwork, and after some initial training, he proposes taking Leon to the capital next Saturday. Excitement lights up Leon's face as she agrees to the plan, eager to explore the capital's wonders. She bombards Rudd with questions about where he goes with his friends and what they do for fun. Rudd, slightly overwhelmed by her chatter, gently asks her to quiet down, amazed by her newfound talkativeness. They start focusing on the grappling technique, with Rudd explaining that he'll teach her the stereo style. He mentions that Professor Claire uses a blend of grappling arts from various continents, making her unpredicatable. The key, Rudd says, is to minimize getting hit while effectively landing blows on her opponent. Leon, puzzled, asks how she can avoid getting hit when her defense is already weak. Rudd reassures her that he's here to teach her just that. He moves gracefully in front of her, and Leon watches, thinking that Rudd's movements are like a snake, sleek and unpredictable. He states that it's a footwork technique, one that relies solely on the tips of her toes. Reading the movements becomes tricky, because she uses only the smallest leg muscles. He reveals that he invented this technique himself, explaining that they don't usually use such tools because they rely on their bodies for combat. Leon is amazed and calls him a genius. She tries to mimic his steps, and Rudd thinks back to how it took him 2 years to create this footwork, followed by another year to refine it, and an additional year to master it. He wonders if he can truly be considered a genius when he's had to work so hard to survive. In his mind, a genius is someone who can achieve what would normally take 4 years of hard work in just 4 minutes, like all his companions from his previous life. Leon, struggling to keep up, asks if she's doing it right, but in the process, she falls to the ground. Rudd exclaims that she's making a mess, reminding her to use only the tips of her toes and encouraging her to pull herself together. He instructs her to get up and try again. Despite his frustration, he seems pleased and promises to keep helping her until she gets it right. Later, as he lies in bed, he reflects that everything seems to be going well so far. The unfolding events in this world may not be much different from his previous life, but his relationships with others are turning out to be bigger variables than he expected. He doesn't know how these relationships will shape the future, but he's determined not to repeat the same mistakes that led to his death in his previous life. If he hopes to gather his companions again and defeat the 7th dragon, he knows he must become like an older brother to them. The first thing he needs to learn is the sky-piercing technique. The following day, he attends class and has a sparring match with Daniel. To Rudd's surprise, Daniel turns out to be quite playful and doesn't seem intent on losing. Daniel decides to change his approach and leaves his sword behind, opting to attack with his fists. Rudd reacts quickly, dodging Daniel's attacks. Confused, Daniel asks if they're not supposed to use swords, to which Rudd chuckles and replies that he can be quite whimsical. Rudd still finds it physically challenging to face Daniel head-on, so he increases the distance between them. Undead to Rudd, Daniel decides to go along with Rudd's playfulness and challenges him to show what he's got. Rudd steps forward, attacks with his sword, and hurls it toward Daniel. The sky-piercing technique involves a sword that serves both as a shield, blocking the enemy's attack, and a counter, parrying the enemy's strikes. In his previous life, he had focused solely on mastering the sky-piercing technique with a sword. It was his way of trying to keep up with his brother. But he soon realized that this technique required something beyond just sword skills. Daniel, holding his sword, exclaimed in awe at his guardian's incredible slashes. He admitted it was hard to pinpoint what made them so amazing, but he managed to block them. Then he demonstrated extracting mana through his arm. He explained that the successor of the sky-piercing technique needed to handle a massive amount of mana stored in a special place called the Heavenly Spirit. Rudd recalled that this was on the back of his brother's hand. Daniel revealed that the power and efficiency of the Heavenly Spirit were overwhelming. However, if the heart was already full of mana, its function as a channel diminished. He asked Rudd if he was learning another mana management technique, but Rudd explained that his previous life's mana management was quite ordinary, based on the wizard's circle system. Rudd was asked to sit down, and Daniel inquired about where he wanted the imprint to be placed. Rudd chose his hand, and as Daniel grasped it, Rudd felt an intense heat. Afterward, he could sense pure mana overflowing, a legacy passed down through generations. It had now condensed into the piercing sky. Daniel asked Rudd about his first encounter with the piercing sky, and Rudd described it as wonderful. Daniel warned that it would take time to adapt to feeling and using mana. To Rudd's surprise, he discovered he was not just aware but already using the modern techniques drawn from the Heavenly Spirit in just a few minutes. Rudd began to think about his alchemy arts training, where the circles on the heart represented the mana stage. However, with the sky-piercing technique, the stage was represented by the number of wings. Master had 6 wings, and the Sky Sword Immortal had 7, just like his brother. Currently, he had 1 wing, as the imprint was etched on his soul, not his body, making it unbreakable. The imprint could not be erased, not even if the successor died. All the memories and powers from their entire life would be restored. But there were only two consciousnesses connected to the heavenly spirit, Master Daniel and the Sky Sword Immortal, who once called him a child when he ventured to the sky. Rudd wondered if, with the imprint on the soul, traces of his brother would remain in the heavenly spirit after regressing. Still, the example of Master Daniel didn't include being trapped in another dimension. He only has one clue, and it vanished when the void dragon, Sartan, disappeared. Determined, he heads over to Henith and Balak. She asks him why he's running late, emphasizing that every second counts for their teaching. Rudd wonders why they've already started and are tasked with teaching Balak, who often dozes off during theory lessons. Only Henith inquires about his lecture with instructor Arthur. Rudd reflects that everything seemed normal, except for the excessive talking from the instructor. Arthur had praised him and called him unrivaled. Claire also commended his remarkable foot techniques. On the other side, when he visited Professor Damien's office, they both sat on the sofa without a single word spoken for a whole hour. Rudd felt they hadn't known each other from his previous life, making it awkward to initiate a conversation. The silence lingered for another 30 minutes, until the lecture finally concluded. Rudd informed Henith and Balak that they had tea, and the class was over. Turning to Balak, he asked about his lecture with Professor Claire. He replied that he liked Professor Claire because she was strong and respectable, someone who appreciated the beauty of muscles. Henith faced a more challenging situation, as there was no magician professor assigned to her. Rudd suggested she explore other types of magic, but this advice didn't sit well with Henith. She argued that the flame-type magic wasn't wrong, just rare. Rudd tried to calm her down and proposed relocating her lectures if she found them too bothersome. However, she expressed disappointment because there were no flame lectures in Aradum. Suddenly, Rudd dropped a surprising bombshell. The White Flame Empress might personally become Henith's lecturer and teacher. The revelation left her in awe. Just then, a student named Jeremy Duval appeared, calling out to them from behind. He was the student council president and the one who took Asir's place. Rudd asked him if he had done some research beforehand. Jeremy replied that Rudd had been chosen by all the professors, causing quite a stir among senior students. Rudd approaches him, curious if he's there to speak up for the senior students' concerns. He wonders if this guy is their representative. But instead, the newcomer explains he doesn't have any complaints. He's here to inquire if Rudd might be interested in joining the student council. They've been short-handed for a while. Still, Rudd turns down the offer, saying he doesn't want to be controlled by someone else's plans. Jeremy, however, insists he won't treat Rudd like some hired soldier. There's an edge to Jeremy's voice, and it looks like he's getting frustrated. Rudd's scar on his arm doesn't go unnoticed by Jeremy, who figures that Rudd must have faced some tough times. Rudd dismisses him as nosy, but Jeremy loves playing detective, and he already knows Rudd's searching for his older brother. Rudd finds Jeremy annoying as usual. Jeremy's eyes sparkle with excitement, and he seems to know everything. Even in his past life, people called him the decision-maker among dragon slayers, because he made choices that were selfish and self-righteous, always favoring the majority. Rudd claims he doesn't like playing detective, but he admits that he often pays too much attention to others and uses his brain to manipulate people. Jeremy says he's been disliked because of this, but he's still interested in Rudd. Rudd scoffs, saying he's not even a bit interested in Jeremy. Henith apologizes to Jeremy for Rudd's behavior, and when she's gone, she asks him why he was so rude to the student council president. Rudd believes that nothing good will come from getting involved with Jeremy, while Balak senses danger brewing. Rudd opens his book, finding a note from Jeremy. It warns him to be cautious of Professor Damien Grace. Anger courses through Rudd as he thinks Jeremy is the one he should watch out for instead of Damien. In his past life, he did many reckless things, made strange choices, and sacrificed countless lives. Damien Grace was the first among the teaching staff to die, a sacrifice orchestrated by Jeremy. Damien's death greatly impacted the future chain of events. Now, Rudd knows he must prevent history from repeating itself, and there's still time until that day. But perhaps Jeremy is already applying pressure on Damien. It's Saturday, and he's going to the capital with Leon, who scolds him for being late. He arrives on time, but according to her, it's a courtesy to be 10 minutes early. Rudd argues that spending his precious weekend with her is the best courtesy he can offer. He invited her because he couldn't stand seeing her look so pitiful, like a dog left out in the rain. Soon, they arrived in the bustling capital, and Leon couldn't contain her excitement. It was her first time here, and she marveled at the sea of people. She turned to Rudd and asked where they were headed, but he admitted he didn't have a specific plan. Leon requested that he guide her since he was the one who invited her along. Rudd suggested they start by shopping, as that's what many kids enjoy. They stepped into a shop, and Leon's eyes sparkled when she spotted a lovely white dress. A friendly salesgirl approached, offering Leon the chance to try it on. She pushed the dress towards Rudd, asking for his opinion. He, however, declined and told Leon to choose whatever she liked. She decided to buy the dress and insisted on getting something for him as well, considering he agreed to accompany her. Though reluctant, Rudd eventually tried on a dress at Leon's urging, much to the salesgirl's delight. After their shopping adventure, they headed to a local eatery, and Leon thoroughly enjoyed the food. She questioned why Rudd had paid for their lunch when she had intended to cover the expense. Rudd explained that she had bought him clothes, and he didn't want to come across as shameless. Leon, finding Rudd's behavior peculiar, playfully called him a strange man. As they strolled along, Leon asked Rudd about his past companions and if they were like family to him. She inquired if he had ever loved someone among them. Instead of answering, Rudd unexpectedly raised his voice, expressing that they weren't like family. They treated him like a child, ready to betray him at any moment. Leon covered her ears, shocked by his outburst. She remarked that she had never met anyone quite like him, someone with a complex personality, both honest and teaching her grappling techniques. Even now, he was busy examining a brochure to decide where to go next. Leon tells him she wants to introduce him to her family. After that, they enter the city, Siren, of the Liberal Kingdom. Rudd tries to tell her that it is against the Academy's rules, but Leon says they will be fine as long as they aren't caught and aren't wearing their uniforms. Rudd is at the point where spending 6 million riddles to use the warped gate once was a waste, and Leon says her mother allowed her to spend the money however she likes. They are in the western regions of the continent, Siren, the capital of the Liberal Kingdom. However, the headquarters of the Dragon Annihilation Troop isn't located in the kingdom's capital. The city is lively and fancy. In his memory, Siren was a dead city, and a few years later this place was destroyed by the attack of the 7 dragons. The Dragon Annihilation Troop was also wiped out around that time. Leon shows him her home, and Rudd thinks it looks more like an aristocratic mansion than the guild headquarters. Meanwhile, a gardener sees them there and asks Leon what she is doing there, or if she is on her vacation. She replies that she just wanted to introduce her friend to the guild members, so they are only stopping by for a while. Uncle Harold is surprised that she finally made a friend outside of the Dragon Annihilation Troop and is running to tell all the members to throw a party, but she stops her, saying it's embarrassing for her. After that, they ask him to come inside, and when they go inside, the kids there ask him multiple questions. They ask if his life is in danger or if Leon hit Rudd. Leon pushes all of them away, and Rudd thinks this is his first time seeing the faces of the Dragon Annihilation Troop's members. However, they are giving him such a familiar atmosphere, and he can now understand why her personality took a 180-degree change after Siren was destroyed. After some time, Uncle Harold calls them and asks them to go to the reception room where the leader is waiting for them. After some time, they enter the reception room where Dragon Annihilation Troop leader Adeline, Leon's mother, is waiting for them. She greets them and asks if it's in the middle of the semester, so why she has come there or if she gets suspended for beating someone up again. Leon tells her that she just wanted to see her and introduce her friend, but she is shocked at the name of the friend. A woman who is also present there says it's shocking to hear that Leon, who has 0 sociability skills, has made a friend. She is the Midsummer Flame Guild Master Liana, and Rudd greets her while Leon exclaims that this woman always comes to their home because she has nothing else to do. She remembers him from the sparring lecture and asks him about Henneth and if she is doing well. Rudd tells her that she is stressed out because she doesn't think the magic teacher this time is good. Meanwhile, Leon's mother starts crying, thanks him for being her daughter's friend, and tells him that her daughter is a little strong. She remembers the academy contacting her the last time she broke her classmate's wrist, and she gets shocked when Leon tells her that Rudd is the same student. Moreover, he picks up a fight first, and she has also received a punishment, but her mother scolds her and asks if she taught her martial arts to bully people around her. Rudd makes it clear that she didn't bully him, and he was the one who said some thoughtless things, so that's why she fought. But her mother asks Leon to apologize to him. She apologizes to him then for hitting him, and her mother again asks her to be careful with regular students. Winex claims that Rudd is not a normal student since she saw him fighting, and he played with the child of Steros like a toy. She also heard that he received a scouting offer from Abel. Leon also adds that this boy is strong and is teaching her grappling techniques. Leon's mother exclaims that she wants to see with her own eyes how strong he is. Rudd has rumors that the leader of the Dragon Annihilation Troop is quite aggressive, so this is an opportunity to fight against an active top-level dragon slayer. So he agrees immediately to spar with her. Soon the news spreads around the guild that the first friend Leon brought home, and the leader will spar, and everyone thinks he will not last for a few seconds. The leader lends him the uniform of the Dragon Annihilation Troop, while Leon apologizes to him if he finds it bothersome, but Rudd is thankful to her because he is able to fight a third-ranked dragon slayer just because of her. Then she goes to her mother and requests her to take it easy on Rudd. After that, they reach the sparring ground and face each other, and their weapons will be the wooden sword, and they can only use mana inside their body. Adeline states that if he can land a blow on her in any way, it'll be his victory, and if he wins as the leader of the troop, she will grant him a wish. They both attack each other simultaneously and block each other's swords in a moment. Adeline jumps upon him to attack, but Rudd blocks her attack and defends himself. Everyone is surprised that the kid is taking on their leader's attacks. Adeline is also astonished because for a 17-year-old, he possesses unbelievably refined swordsmanship and perfect technique. Compared to his technique, it's a shame that his normal body can't keep up with it. However, she wants to check how far he can go, while Rudd thinks this is how she goes easy on kids because it is getting difficult for him to resist. He pauses for a while. Adeline asks him if he is tired already, but this time he uses his mana to blow an attack on her. Adeline defends herself with her mana, which makes a shield around her, and Rudd's sword breaks into pieces. Judging by the technique he uses, she observes that he has used the sky-piercing technique, and she doesn't have any idea that Daniel took in a direct disciple. She asks him to come again and take revenge for his master. Meanwhile, Leon knew that Rudd was strong, but this was beyond her expectations, and she couldn't believe her mother was having that much fun sparring with him. While Rudd stated that he had already won this match because she used mana outside her body just now, Adeline didn't know that she had already broken the rule. According to the deal they had, she had to grant him a wish, so she asked him to feel free to say it now. Rudd stated his wish was simple, and requested her to spar against her again under the same rules. They started the spar again, and Adeline observed that there's a reason he confidently asked for the second round. The air around him was completely different from the first round. She again landed an attack on him, but Rudd's reaction speed was wild. Still, there was a gap for a counterattack, but soon she realized there was no gap. He avoided her attacks while simultaneously making his moves. It was quite tricky dealing with him because not only did he possess Leon's monstrous sense that allowed him to read her movements perfectly, she had never seen that strange style that could prevent her from predicting his path, but she could still block him, push him away, and asked him to come at her with all he had. While fighting, she came near him, and this was the moment he was waiting for. He threw away his sword. He jumped from his place, and Adeline now got that he was going to throw his sword from the beginning. She needed to distance herself, but Rudd disappeared before her. He appeared behind her, using the stereo's fist technique Earth Tremor, and broke the floor with his fist. Then, he jumped upon Adeline and attacked her with his fist. She reacted in time and kicked him back. Leon asked him why he was pushing himself so hard in a losing fight. Rudd told her he didn't lose because he successfully hit a deadline. She admitted her defeat. She would now keep her promise and asked him what he wanted. Rudd replied that he didn't need anything but a promise. She needed to believe what he would say one day. Adeline wondered what an unusual request he wanted, and asked him the reason. Rudd told her that he didn't intend to let anyone die. Adeline, as the leader of the Dragon Annihilation Troop, promised him that she would make sure to keep her promise. Anyway, she would be replaced by the new generation soon, so she looked forward to working with him and called him her son-in-law, which shocked both of them. It was revealed that several years from now, the 7 dragons would awaken from their slumber and start attacking various places. The 1,000-formed dragon would be the first, followed by the lightning dragon. The third to move would be Lyosha, the delusive dragon. Lyosha was a member of the royal dragon family who used psychic magic, and Siren would collapse from their surprise attack. The Dragon Annihilation Troop would be wiped out after that. Rudd's party would successfully subjugate the delusive dragon and avenge Leon, but at the end of the fight with the 7 dragons, it would have taken the lives of each member of their party as well. However, he thinks he will not let anyone he met today die. Now, he has successfully established a connection with the Dragon Annihilation Troop. He will warn them about the Delusion Dragon's attack before it happens. Suddenly, he calls Leon and asks her why she is acting so awkward over something that was clearly a joke, but she says she is not concerned about that. Soon, they reach the academy, and it's so dark already. She asks him if he will go with her again to visit the capital, but he doesn't reply to her, and asks her why she is following him because the girls' dorm is on the other side. She is escorting her back because she heard that there's a pervert that is coming out to exercise in front of the dorm entrance with his clothes off at night. Moreover, a blonde homeless girl roams in the central flower field, and Rudd thinks these two people seem lenient. He asks Leon to tell him more about them. The next morning he goes to see the spirit arts academic advisor, Lillian Stout, and says he wants to ask something because he is curious about something. He wants to ask her about a student named Linnea Selkit, because there's a small issue with that person's attitude. But the professor started shouting that sleeping on the streets, swimming in the central fountain, and having barbecue parties alone on the roof was not a small issue. She did everything she could do as an advisor. 5 minutes later, the professor apologizes to him for being so overboard, and Rudd thinks she is so stressed. She starts the conversation by saying that Linnea is a talented student with an unrivaled affinity to spirits. Despite her carefreeness, she is sure that Linnea will become an unparalleled spirit soon. Her only problem is that she loves freedom too much and usually makes paper airplanes with her written exam copies or jumps out of the glass window because she's hungry. She recently destroyed an entire drill hall because she was testing spirit magic, and Rudd thinks she's worse than he thought. He remembers Easier telling him that getting Linnea to graduate was 5 times harder than all the training she went through. At that time, he thought he was exaggerating too much. Now, the professor states that Eridum only allows failing a year twice, and if Linnea goes on like this, expulsion wouldn't be unreasonable. Still, she doesn't want her talent wasted, and asks Rudd why he requested this meeting about Linnea. Rudd was puzzled by the behavior of the senior student, Lenia. She had such skill and talent, yet she seemed disinterested in the concerns of adults. However, Lenia approached Rudd with a request to prevent the expulsion of someone essential to the country's fame and future. She hoped that her words, filled with respect for her junior, would have an impact on Lenia. Rudd wasn't particularly good with flattery, but he agreed to take on this task for the professor. Before we continue, let's take a moment to shout out Detective Ron 2076, who commented, "I like this story so much, thank you for introducing me to this. You really deserve more subscribers on our SSS Ranked Hero video. Thanks for commenting." As time passed, some students walked through the garden where Lenia was sleeping. Among them was Rudd, who couldn't help but admire her beauty. To him and the others, she appeared to be the most enchanting homeless person they had ever seen. Some even speculated that she might be a mix of human and spirit. Approaching her, Rudd tried to wake her up. However, Lenia simply rolled over and went back to sleep. Frustrated, he resorted to gently kicking her. After a bit of rolling around, Lenia finally woke up and questioned his actions. Confused, Rudd asked her why she was in the garden so early in the morning. Lenia explained that she had been watching the flowers and had dozed off. Rudd introduced himself as a representative of Advisor Lillian, making him her junior. Lenia was curious about his purpose there, and Rudd proceeded to shower her with compliments, admiring her skills. Lenia, unfazed by the flattery, asked if Rudd wanted to be her friend. However, Rudd seemed more interested in discussing her academic life. Lenia's attention soon wandered, and she started chasing after a butterfly. Rudd eventually managed to lead her to the side and expressed his concern about her habit of skipping classes and causing trouble, citing the incident in the drill hall a few days prior. Lenia brushed it off, relieved that no one had been hurt. Rudd struggled to control his frustration and asked her why she skipped classes. Lenia confessed that she didn't want to graduate because the academy felt warm and was filled with beautiful flowers, while her hometown was perpetually covered in snow. She cherished playing around more than attending classes and wished to stay there forever. Rudd questioned whether she understood the purpose of Academy Eridum, where students trained to become dragon slayers. He emphasized that countless people were dying outside the Empire due to dragon attacks. Lenia, however, challenged the notion that humans should kill dragons, suggesting that they were similar in nature. For her, the most important thing was a peaceful daily life. Rudd was taken aback by Lenia's perspective and asked if she truly believed that humans and dragons were identical. Lenia insisted that Rudd, who had only lived in the snowy mountains, couldn't comprehend her viewpoint. She cherished the tranquility of the academy. Unlike other empires constantly ravaged by external forces, humans are amicably being slaughtered, and countless nations are being destroyed daily. In a place where a dragon slayer is stationed, there's possibly some protection. However, homes without them can be wiped off the map by even an infant earth dragon. He asks her if she has seen her siblings, parents, and friends being eaten right before her, but she asks him why he is angry at her. Rudd gets out of control and says he would rather talk to a wall, and he knows that she is selfish, but he didn't expect her to be ignorant to this extent. Meanwhile, she reveals that the only reason she is here is because she is curious about her mother's alma mater. Wright, witnessing their heated exchange, asks her to enjoy her peaceful life here until she dies while driving other kids crazy. When he left, she called her dad through a diamond and asked what she should do because she wanted to be close friends with Rudd. He replied that friendships are built through quarrels. Lenia thinks he will apologize to her tomorrow, while the Spirit King Feldroa also wants to talk to him. Rudd thinks he tried his best to persuade her, but it wasn't enough, and later, he worsened the situation due to his short temper. She has lived with spirits in a remote snowy mountain all her life, so it is reasonable for her not to empathize with the situation of humans and dragons. Rudd realizes he vented out all his anger on a child. Easier might have succeeded in persuading her because he was born with innate kindness. But what should he do? As he goes toward the class, he sees Henneth and Leon fighting. Henneth is shouting at her about why she came there after breaking his wrist and asks her to get lost. Henneth has seen her wandering around the dorm and is sure she came there to get revenge for her punishment, while Leon is trying to tell her that it was just a misunderstanding. What will happen next? Find out next time by staying tuned for our future recaps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great recaps.